I think the 7th Parliament was more exciting than the 8th Parliament.
Really, 137, 137.
That's the irony. That's the irony. I mean, we had more work to do in the 7th Parliament than we do now.
Even with the overwhelming numbers against you.
And that is quite disappointing. The fact that we were in a real minority at the time did not deny us the opportunity to play our oversight role.
Okay.
And I'm sure that is what paid off during the elections for us to get to 137 members now. Unfortunately, the 137 members now seem to have confused the government so much so that they do not even know what to do with Parliament. And instead of taking advantage of the equal numbers in Parliament to build a strong parliamentary democracy, they are rather targeting at weakening Parliament because they think that is the solution. And I find it quite disappointing, because any Democrat, any lover of democracy will take advantage of a situation such as the one we have to build the parliamentary institution, to enrich it, you know, by way of procedures and by way of practice, because we may never in future have, you know, this opportunity again. The worst that can happen from this point is a government being in power and then having a minority in Parliament. But in that scenario also, you never know if the majority will be reckless and will be obstructive. So it may not be a good time to build a parliamentary institution. But what we are guaranteed is when you have equal numbers. I mean, that is where the give and take should be based on open-mindedness, you know, and the motivation should be to serve democracy better. All the principles of democracy must be at play. And with that, you can write regulations, you can right wrongs in the past, and you can project into the future to, you know, make decisions that will prevent abuses in the future. When a government has minority or when it has absolute majority, this is the time we should take decisions that will guard against abuse in the future. You know, but unfortunately, this government is so confused about the numbers that they practically is rendering Parliament redundant. So we go to Parliament these days and government doesn't bring any business for us to do. Meanwhile, our Parliament is structured in such a way that a chunk of its work is government business because of the nature of our constitution. You know, government bills, government motions are what we consider, you know, in Parliament. The rest that are private, you know, business relates to statements about situations or conditions in the country or outside the country, or questions to ministers about when a road is going to be done, when electricity is going to be extended, when, you know, health infrastructure is going to be improved. Those are the things that are private, you know, business. But those are not the main reasons why we go to Parliament, because it is the government business that will even lead to the appropriate answering of the questions. Because if government does not bring agreements on the construction of roads, what do you expect the Minister of Road to tell you when you ask him when a road is going to be done? If the government doesn't bring business relating to extension of electricity, what has the Minister of Energy got to tell you when you ask him about?
So you're getting empty answers.
Yes, so the answers are just rhetorical and not meaningful. So I'm saying that the government is losing an opportunity to help Parliament, to build itself, to enrich its practices and its procedures. This should have been a very exciting time for Parliament.
Okay.
But unfortunately, because of the mindset of the government and the aim to weaken it, it is not taking advantage of the opportunity that we have to let the institution grow.
Because when I listen to you, you feel that this parliament has a unique opportunity to define, because a lot of people talk about the fact that even when they had the overwhelming numbers, they still got some businesses through consensus. This time around looks like, and in the beginning of this parliament, actually, people were worried about even the consensus building. Your members used to, the NDC members used to fight you about, why are you agreeing with them and everything? What has changed essentially? Was it we say government needs to help? Is it not the same? It looks like the same parliament. The leadership of parliament is handing parliament right back to government, because if the majority stood its ground, would you be here?
I believe that this would have been a watershed moment for our parliamentary practice. Years to come, if we are able to do things right, people will always refer to that 8th parliament that wrote or rewrote the history of parliamentary practice in Ghana. And we on the minority side started on that note. We fortunately belong to a tradition that is not unreasonable. Despite our partisanship, we tend to be very patriotic when it comes to supporting our young democracy and helping it to grow. And why not? We are the founders of that democracy. The 4th Republic is our baby. I mean, it revolves around our founder, Jerry Rawlings, and the constitution that they boycotted is what forms the basis of this 4th Republic. So it's just like that story in the Bible involving the ownership of the baby that Solomon had to decide on. So there are times that our friends in the NPP do not seem to care. They don't seem to care about the future of this democracy, and they can get reckless. They can say the highway or no way, like they are doing with E-Levy and others. But the NDC, because we think we have something to lose if the 4th Republic is interrupted, tend to be more reasonable, more cooperative. And that is why even though we had equal numbers in 2021, for example, we had to in some cases even incur the wrath of our supporters because we were willing to allow government to work when we had what it takes to disrupt government. Our speaker, who is also from our stock, said it clearly that he was not going to be an obstructive speaker. And taking a cue from him, we decided we're not going to be an obstructive minority. But I think our friends in government may have taken that to mean a weakness of a sort. Like they always do. When you grant them an inch, they take a mile, because they think, it's their right for you to grant them that inch. And so perhaps based on that mindset,
so the early signals give them the impression that they were still
instead of them to take those early signals to open more channels of cooperation, more channels of working together, they took that to mean that they were still in control and they could still have their way however they wanted it, and that is what has resulted in the stalemate that we have, where a budget policy is passed but the major revenue handle is unable to be approved, even though we are in the ember moments of the first quarter. It is, and it seems to me that they still don't get it. They still don't think that the best way is to get back to the drawing board and establish routes and channels of cooperating with us. They still think, for example, they can get a judicial support for whatever they do and get us to kowtow to whatever they want, you know, from Parliament. It's not the right way to go. That is why we introduce, even in our judicial system, the alternative dispute mechanism, because we feel that the judicial process is adversarial. I mean, yes, you get a judgment in your favor, but sometimes how to even execute the judgment
is a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so where you think that executing the judgment would be a problem, you do not resort to the traditional way of you know, resolving that dispute. You rather will resort to the use of the alternative dispute mechanism. But you find them, you know, beating their chairs. I'll give you one typical example of chairs beating. Unfortunately, this was led by the president himself, who should know better, given his age, given his experience. You think that he will be more sober, but
and he's even a former member of parliament.
Yes, that's why I said, given his experience and his age, you will expect him to know better and be more sober. But when we, even in this session, approved the appropriation, remember when the budget statement was read, as a minority, we indicated that we're going to kick against the budget policy and the budgets as a whole, and the appropriation as a whole. We indicated, and we gave 7 reasons why we're going to do that. Now, the finance ministry made efforts at addressing some of the concerns that we had. So because of that approach, and because we are a reasonable opposition, we did not think it made sense to still hold on to our position of rejecting the budget in its entirety, because some concessions had been made. So because of that, we decided to approve the budget appropriation, even though our initial decision was to kick against it. We approved it by consensus. So if you check the Hansard in Parliament, the appropriation bill was approved by consensus.
Well, some people, that's the confusing aspect.
Now I'm making a point with that story. Don't let me forget.
Okay, so make that point now.
So after this approval of the budget appropriation, the president went to Kumasi that weekend when the party had a conference.
The delegates conference.
The delegates conference. And what did he say?
He said they were now showing their might.
That there is majority in Parliament, that they should not let anybody, he was talking to his MPs, that they should not let anybody deceive them. That, in fact, he used the word noise, that I have been hearing noise, that there's no majority in Ghana's Parliament. You are the majority in Parliament. You people must be congratulated for passing the appropriation. We are still expecting more from you. That is an over 70-year-old president in his second term, with the experience of being a member of Parliament before, a minister of state before, who is still fighting when he has nothing to fight for. And I thought to myself, does this man realize the times that we are in? The appropriation he's speaking about was even done on consensus. So why single out your party MPs for congratulations and demand them to go do more, beat who and bring more, and bring what? So that chest beating, you know, continues. Then you hear the Supreme Court ruling on whether the speaker, deputy speaker, when presiding, can vote or not. Listen to him again after that. I mean, we have a terrible leader. A terrible leader who is simply shaming old age and experience. Because, I mean, at home, Senna, in our homes, it is the elderly who show a lot of soberness. I mean, soberliness, yes. It is the elderly who show that. I mean, when the youthful exuberance tries to tear the family apart, it's the old people who say,
I hold it to the
hey, this is a man who, even at that age, only thinks about splintering heads. So, out of the goodness of our hearts, we decide to change our position to kick against appropriation, cooperate with them to approve it, and he beats his chest and praises his MPs and ignores us. The Supreme Court rules the presiding speaker a deputy speaker can vote. He taunts us. I mean, now I believe, based on those two examples, that he instructs his Attorney General to initiate prosecution against our former Deputy Finance Minister and ranking member on the Finance Committee. Do you get the linkage? Nobody is saying that if the man has to be prosecuted, he should not be prosecuted. But a reasonable, sober, thoughtful person will think of the timing. Because he is ranking member on Finance Committee. He's leading an opposition against a major tax policy you are going to introduce, and you think the response is to begin prosecutions of him after 6 years since he left office. You never found anything against him until now. Do you think that should be the approach of a very thoughtful, reasonable person, elderly person? But that's what we have. But you see, Ghanaians were forewarned. But we took it as politics. Why? What didn't he do, even as leader of his party? Anyone who stood in his way, he cleared, including the party chairman, including the party secretary, general secretary, or national chairman, regional chairman were cleared. In the process of that dispute, yes, in the process of that dispute, some lost their lives. He marched on. Little wonder that after the 2020 general elections, for the first time in our history, when over 6 people were killed as a result of the challenges that we saw at various polling stations, in his concession speech, his victory speech, he referred to those as a few deaths. Few. Even one death of a family member wouldn't be considered few. Not a natural death. But he referred to that as few, and he marches on. So I think that the reason why we are not, our democracy at this time is not taking advantage
of the unique opportunity
we have with equal numbers in parliament is the leadership that we have at the helms of affairs of this country.
Specifically, you single out the president,
and the vice president.
The president and the vice president.
Yes.
Vice president. Why do you bring him in?
Well, we have an executive system of governance,
okay,
and they too are the top. The two went around this country to campaign for leadership.
Okay.
So one is the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. The other is the chairman of the police council. So they are like Siamese twins. In fact, that's how they projected themselves to us when they were campaigning.
But so you also think that the majority's reaction is just this, they're just following the signals from the presidency, exactly, that they have no other choice?
Exactly. Everything is leadership. Whatever follows is a consequence. That's what we are taught in management, not so. Mm-hmm. The leader determines the path and the approach. And in our local parlance, we say the fish starts rotting from the head. So if we have a rotten leadership, guess where the rot started from?
I think I was listening to Sam George recently, who said that it looks like no consensus will be built going forward. And recently, your leader, Haruna Idris, someone who has avoided, since his student leadership days, has become more of someone who is a bit more deliberative, consensus builder among others. The last time when they were trying to pass a loan, actually stood up and said, no, the Supreme Court says we should be this number. We are not that number, so nothing will happen. Would it be difficult building consensus going forward?
They have to realize that times have changed.
They are still not?
They still haven't. They still haven't realized that times have changed. They need to recognize that, I mean, we are equals in Parliament. They have the executive, but the executive doesn't operate without Parliament.
Okay.
But in Parliament, we are equals.
They don't see you as such?
If they recognize that and come to the table as equals, it will be richer for our democracy. And that is what we are beginning to let them appreciate. They did not take the cue when in the beginning of the year, the minority leader kept cautioning, and to use the exact phrase, that cooperation will suffer. They didn't take a cue. He kept cautioning that if certain things were not done, cooperation will suffer. Cooperation will suffer. They didn't take a cue, unfortunately. So they have pushed even the doves on our side to the wall, and they are becoming hawks. And that is why you make reference to even the minority leader raising the issue of quorum only 3 days ago, and justifying it with the Supreme Court ruling, because you are celebrating the Supreme Court ruling, then it applies to every conduct on the floor from now onwards. That's the cooperation suffering, because there were things that as a result of cooperation we allowed in the past to slide. But if you are in your attempt to weaken Parliament and to have your way at all costs, you want us to go strictly by the latter of our procedures, then we will apply it to every other aspect of our procedures.
So now when you go to Parliament, we have to count at least a quarter, 1/3.
Oh yes.
And then half.
Yes.
Even if with
before a decision can be taken, you need at least half of members present.
But sometimes we watch from Facebook and we can count that you are not up to 1/3 when you start business.
In the last couple of weeks, the House has been forced to adjourn twice because we didn't have numbers to do government business and to take decisions. The last time, it resulted in a scuffle between myself and the first deputy speaker when I raised the issue of quorum, and he refused to adjourn the House. I mean, eventually he did, but he went round to make it seem like it was not because of my point of order that they were adjourning, but they could not simply proceed because after I protested strongly and walked out. They couldn't proceed because they knew that I was standing on solid ground. They did not have the numbers to continue doing any business, so eventually they had to adjourn after they finished doing private business. There were other motions on the paper that they wanted to move. They couldn't, but he smartly looked at the watch and said it was past 2 and we are now in the hands, but they adjourned. He could have extended for them to continue business. So in the last couple of weeks, even the sitting has been affected because of the issue of quorum. In the past, these were things that members would have ignored. so that at least business will continue. But we are saying that they need to understand that we are in this boat together. So we either, get out alive, God forbid, or we sink together. And no one has a spare life anywhere. So it's not as if we are drowning, they have a spare life later that they will go and use. So it is our country. It's the only country we have. So we need to work together to save it for our collective benefit. I hear they are going to have, an emergency cabinet meeting. They better do. And I hope that they will be bold enough to tell each other the hard truths in the face. Yeah. And then come out, better ready, to cooperate with all other stakeholders, not only the minority. I mean, speak to civil society organizations, speak to people who have been doing business with government all these years, and they'll tell you the level of impudence, the arrogance is just legendary. I mean, they think always that it is their way or their highway, and that has resulted in numerous scandals in this country. You remember the PDS matter?
Yeah.
And how it all fell through because some people close to the president couldn't have their way. I'm sure you heard the voice, the recording of, the negotiation that was going on. I mean, it has been like that for so many years, but people are having enough, are getting to a point where they are saying enough is enough. So it's not just about the minority, but it's the need for them to come out of this emergency meeting with a renewed spirit, with a renewed way of, relating with other stakeholders in the development of this country.
Because I realize that even from negotiations with unions, because for the first time UTAC took a belligerent position, and in fact teachers had to be begged to go back to the lecture house because lecturers were of the opinion that they won't go back. You were saying that this cabinet meeting should not only be about going to IMF or doing E-level. It should be about the whole approach the government has been using.
Exactly. That's why I say it should be about coming out with a renewed spirit, a renewed approach that will engender constructive engagement with all stakeholders. I could have limited it to the minority because that is where I am familiar. That's what I'm familiar with. But I'm saying that listening to other stakeholders and watching governments relate to many of them, it is clear that the belligerence, the arrogance of this government has reached unprecedented levels, and stakeholders generally can no longer take it. And that is why you have examples such as those you have cited. The UTAC position, the CLOCSAC, the TUC, they have all issues very strong condemnations of certain stands that government have taken against their call in some cases for negotiation. Sometimes it's not even demanding that A or B be done for them, but in the case of UTAC, for example, you recall what the General Secretary said about the Finance Minister refusing to even meet them. It's just not the way to run a country. I mean, and some of us raise it, Senator, during the appointments committee in the first term of this government. We raised the question, especially with the finance minister being someone without any experience in public financing. For some of them, it's like they're running a private business that they created from under their bed and has grown to employ all of us.
You don't see that duty of care they're supposed to do in a public institution.
No, they think they are doing all of us a favor governing. They think they are doing all of us a favor. It's like they have created their company and they have grown their company, and we are just workers of the company. And so who are we to demand that we sit and talk. I'm surprised many of them are now calling for review and discussions on free SHS. What did they tell us when we said before the 2020 elections about free SHS that we will form a consultative, forum to discuss the way forward
with the free SHS,
SHS and how to review it? What did they tell us?
I remember Dr. Bauman said,
yeah, that one, we plan to cancel it because we don't have ideas. That's why we want to organize, a consultative. I mean, so that for me was an indication that they think they know it all, so they don't need to consult anybody, because any true, democratic practitioner or a lover of democracy knows that it is true. It is, the best of ideas come out through a consultative process. Not so. But for some people in power to believe that a consultative process is an indication of lack of ideas on your own, just tells you the mindset they have governing. It is their idea, their way, or the highway.
I have spoken to a few of your colleagues. I'm avoiding calling you a hawk. Even if you are, you don't show it. I understand that.
I'm half hawk, half down, depending on the moment.
I understand there were points where there were some members of your side who were of the opinion that from day one, no cooperation. We should fight these guys from the beginning. Do you think if you had listened to perhaps, and if the leadership had listened to those people, the signal would have been sent from the very beginning that this is not business as usual?
Senna, I'm going to be very honest with you. At that time, I thought so.
You were one of those who was thinking that.
I'm not saying I'm one of those who were thinking that, but I'm just saying that at that time, I thought that to send them a signal, to force them to, cooperate, to learn to cooperate, we needed to, be intransigent in our ways.
Okay.
I thought that would have sent a very good message to them.
Okay.
But on hindsight, I think it's good we didn't.
Okay.
Because you see, this country is an interesting country. I don't know if I should be saying this, but I always feel that we in the NDC are like the adopted children.
Adopted?
Yeah. It's like what the NPP gets away with,
you can't.
No, we are not able to. The tolerance level that most Ghanaians have for the failings or the failures of the NPP are higher than the tolerance level they have for the failure of the NDC.
You feel that if they were in the position, they would have taken an intransigence and nobody
would have a problem with it.
Okay.
But if we did, in the beginning, people would have just condemned us as being unreasonable, veranda boys, revolutionary people. We don't kill our regional chairman and others. That's still the tag. So that's why I feel that upon hindsight, I think it was a good thing not to have been intransigent at the beginning. Even though we had the speaker, we could have had one of the second deputy speakers being one of our own. We decided to let go because we thought we had the trophy, and so there was no need fighting over the leftovers. We let it go. We proposed the independent member of parliament, knowing his roots, to become the second deputy because we wanted to show a sign of willing to cooperate and to build consensus. Our speaker that we elected, that they resisted fiercely, went to supervise the swearing in of the president. He could have boycotted it because his party was contesting the election results in the court. he went. Then came the formation of the government. Ministers had to appear before an appointment committee with equal numbers. And our standing order says where the votes on any issue are equal, the vote is lost. So we had the capacity at the time to ensure that the president didn't even form a government. We could have. We could have ensured that no minister got appointed. But we cooperated. Those that we had issues with, we raised the issues. Those that we wanted to oppose, we opposed. And those that we, wanted to give a second chance to address certain issues, we suspended their approval until they satisfied us with either commitments to do certain things or commitment to change their approach to the way that they did certain things before they were approved. So we facilitated the formation of a government. The budget for 2021 was brought, 2022, we approved. Even when they introduced taxes like the pollution tax, the sanitation tax, we approved.
Okay, that's the 2021 budget.
The 2021 budget, we approved. We could have frustrated that like we are frustrating this. But we gave them all the opportunities to come around and work with us. And they blew it all. And so now we have a stronger case when we say we are not cooperating. And it's difficult for those who usually do not tolerate our failures, that easily, to come at us. All the Nyansafo were here and all that 10 stories upside down just so that they could discredit the NDC when we're in power are quiet. All the sermons about how fearful it was that our CD was getting to 5 CDs, $1, are all silenced because we gave the government all the opportunity that it needed to work with us. But every step of the way they threw it in our face. And it is the reason why we are even in the economic mess that they have put us into.
Because they didn't listen.
The fact that they will not listen to anything, any advice, the fact that they think they know it all, the fact that they dismantled all the things that we put in place to insulate our economy against hard times. When we were hit by COVID, where did they find relief? Was it not the fund that we established for such hard times that they reached into and got 250 million Ghana cedis? All the hospitals that were declared emergency treatment centers, were they not constructed by us? But even that, they did not see the wisdom in still keeping to some of our policies and programs and listening to our suggestions as to how they could improve some of those policies and programs. They just kept dismantling and throwing every suggestion in back onto our faces. And that is why we all find ourselves in the difficulty that we find ourselves today. It was only a matter of time. The NDC was actually on the path of growth before we lost the power in 2016. I give very simple examples of how some of our problems were addressed in the long term, systematically. Recently, there was a statement on the floor of Parliament on Ghana Gas and its operations. And in my contribution, I made the point about how that one investment, that single investment, contributed to solving the problem of unemployment. Because if you go to Ghana Gas today, the staff of Ghana Gas before it was formed were not working at Ghana Gas. Many of them were unemployed. That's just one. Security men, cleaners, all kinds of workers, accountants, all kinds of workers at Ghana Gas. That's reducing unemployment. But if you even want to go further, it also has contributed to the Ghana's dependency on importation of LPG. So today, 49% of LPG that we consume in Ghana comes from the Atuabu gas plant.
Okay. Even the suppliers even say 50.
Yeah. I'm just being, what do you call it? I'm just going for the lowest number.
Yeah.
Now consider the jobs in that chain.
Because people talking about the supply to the gas.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes,
power plants.
That's what I'm talking about. The supply, the LPG supply, the processing, and even to the gas stations. What it has also created, the jobs it has created in that line. Apart from the saving, because we would have needed hard-earned Ghanaian cedis to import the, gas. The price that we are paying for gas today, as high as it is, it has increased. In fact, in some cases, I think it has tripled or quadrupled.
Okay.
But I'm telling you that if we did not have 50% of that coming from Ghana, we would have been paying even more. But one single, permit my tautology, that one single investment solved or contributed to solving unemployment, contributed to solving the problem that our city goes through as a result of the need to gather more cities to get dollars to import LPG.
And the city is still struggling.
And I was reminding reporters also about how in those days it was routine for newsrooms to carry stories about the West Africa gas pipeline has broken down again, and so we are likely to have some interruption in power supply. Yeah. Many reporters who are young today don't know that experience, because the Atuabu Ghana Gas has solved that problem of consistent supply of gas to our plants. So under President Kufuor, we're having those challenges of power interruptions because of that West Africa gas pipeline. Under President Mills, we had it. But by the time the NDC was leaving office in 2006, and I'm saying that reporters today don't know it. So when they tell you Dumso was under Mahama, those power interruptions started long before him. And the experts predicted that if we were not making the right kind of investments, it was going to get worse, and it did get worse under Mahama. But then the fortune or the blessing was that you had the president and the government that was focused on solving the problem long term. And so they began the necessary investments. So I was using that. And go to Terminal 3. I mean, how many workers of the Ghana Airport Company have been employed today as a result of Terminal 3? In fact, some of their foot soldiers are there as security men. I see them all the time and I smile. And I say, thank the NDC that you have a job. Because the NPP couldn't have employed them into their homes. Already a couple of weeks ago, the Ghana Airport was awarded the third time consecutively the one airport in Africa with best quality of service and size. Consecutively for 3 times it has won that award. Why? Because of that investment. So it created jobs, it is facilitating trade and movement of people and goods, and it is generating revenue. They are making money. Government is making money from it. Money that unfortunately they are not using to invest in similar projects, but to fly expensive jets around the world. And these were some of the practical ways. I mean, today they beat their chest and talk about how many nurses that they have recruited. And I ask myself, did you recruit them into your bedrooms? You recruited them into hospitals you didn't build. That was the NDC way of addressing unemployment. And so, like when I said it was just a matter of time, we're on a path to sustainable growth until they use sugar-coated bitter words, came in sheep clothing to deceive the people of Ghana to give them power. We were on a path to sustainable growth. Yes, the NDC wasn't perfect. It got some things wrong. But the difference between the NDC then and the NPP now in government is the humility to admit when we got it wrong. That is why, for example, when we saw that the National Youth Employment Program, which was then JIDA, some wrong things were happening there. We did not say that the president was deceived and moved on. We did not say that nothing is happening there, is just perception of imagination of people. No. We had the humility to admit that something was wrong with the JIDA program. Arrested people, suspended the program, retooled it, took a bill to parliament, got a new act for it. That is sustainable growth and progress. That is sustainable growth and progress. I mean, when Wes, a district chief executive, said who said Chia, and people were upset that he disrespected those who put him there, we removed him. Today CEOs are telling us that they have increased alcohol prices. If we want, we should drink water. They will increase it. They like women. If we want, we can do home.
I hear that CEO was a very good friend.
In fact, was Honorable James's good friend. He was James's good friend. Yeah, he said you should call him Honorable. So I'm saying that we were not perfect, but where we got it wrong, we had the humility to make amends, or to at least attempt to make amends. You don't see that now. I mean, a PPA boss is, drowning in corrupt practices. Shraj has established it. The president hasn't heard. When even an appointee had a casual conversation of how she was thinking of making 1 million Ghana cedis and not worried about engaging in petty fights, and people thought it was a problem, she was fired. Unfair as it may have been, the leadership was not ready to compromise. So we were humble enough to admit and make efforts at correcting things that we thought people were not happy with. That is what the people of Ghana, I am very convinced, are missing today. The genuineness of leadership to make contributions to sustainable growth and to step back and take corrective measures when their attention is drawn to what may be going wrong. Is what we lack today.
By the time they called the Mahama government the Ethiopia,
why? That was all the part of the sugar-coated, bitter words, the propaganda that they used. At what point did President Mahama say Ethiopia? Where? They speak of two scenarios. One was him dancing to that song with Otumfuo at a Mpanimfo's dining room. I was there that night, Senna. I was there, thanks to God, because it was the commissioning of the completion of work of the first phase of the Kumasi airport.
Okay. When it was being completed,
another legacy. Yes. Yeah. So when they commissioned the completion of work of the first phase, that enabled planes to land at night in Kumasi, the Asantehene was excited and hosted him to a late dinner. In fact, the dinner started after 1 a.m. So the music was provided by the Asantehene, because it was the band in the Asantehene Palace, and nobody requested that song. But because videos of President Mahama emerged with him and the Asantehene dancing to that tune, Yentiobia. Hey, or say on Tiobia. Propaganda. It's not like he went on any platform and said that I will not listen to anybody. No. It's not like he went to the dinner party and said my favorite song is Yentiobia, so play for me. But the propaganda was that strong. There's sugar-coated bitter words. Now we are feeling the bitterness of the words that they gave us, and I don't want to be in their shoes now. Sometimes when I listen to the videos of Dr. Baumia, I listen to the videos of Nana Akufo-Addo, I watch their tweets and their Facebook posts, I just cringe and I just wonder how they feel at home. That's if they have any conscience left. I doubt if they do though, but if they have conscience, then I can just imagine the agony that they go through.
If you just join us, Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini in the studio, Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Don't mind me if I refer to him by his first name. When he comes here, his family, he's a brother. Everybody will just call you by your name. That's how we always call you. When we see you on the floor, we say, Honorable. But
feels good to be home.
Yes, it's wonderful. I've been thinking, how's the switch been into politics like? People say there's no difference when you are working in the media for a while.
There is. I think that the difference I notice have led me to conclude that working in the media is like walking on the veranda of politics. You are not really in the room.
You're walking on the
veranda of politics. You are not really in the room, but when you are in the veranda, just imagine when you are going home. I mean, when and you get to your veranda, you feel like Charlie. You enter your room, finish, but you don't enter it. Yeah. You understand? You have to open, you can open the room and then maybe it's flooded. But on the veranda, you wouldn't know that the veranda. So that's the difference I see. I mean, you working in the media makes you feel you are very close to politics and you know everything about politics. But it's not the case. I mean, when you get into the room, things sometimes seem different. But it's easier for you to adjust because you may have already had some ideas, about things, and those that are confirmed, those that are not confirmed, you just quickly adjust, and I think that's the advantage of switching from media to politics. You easily adapt.
And that's an interesting you have provided.
And you see, even in the media and on radio, you're serving people. You are interacting with people, but not directly. People from different walks of life, with people from different backgrounds, are listening to you, and they are influenced differently by what you do and say. And then the feedback you get from them also impact you differently. But the difference when you are in politics, especially representing a constituency, is that you are still engaging them, but this time directly, face to face, hand in hand, body to body in some cases, because you are doing walks, you are hugging babies, you know, you are you are doing. So it is now. Maybe you can say on radio is not contact sports.
Yeah.
You know, but on the field as a politician, representing
you have a big conversation with people.
Yeah, you tend to have the same conversations, but you are now looking at them eyeball to eyeball. You are touching them, you are feeling them. But in the studio, it's just you and the four walls, you know, and your microphone and your headphone. That you know they are out there, and you know you are in there. You know, then you are impacting each other. You know, but in politics, you actually have to be there, present, and then they feel you and you feel them.
I hear sometimes it can be brutal.
Yeah,
the conversations can.
Sometimes it can be very discouraging.
Yeah,
very, very discouraging. I mean, but then, like I said, it's just like radio. I mean, there are times that you think you are doing your very best, and then a listener sends you a text to say, "Charlie, you dey do nya." So it's like that also. The only difference is that, you know, in the studio, you don't see the person, you don't see how he or she was looking like when he was sending you the message, or the caller. You may only know that the sound of the voice, but you don't know how the person. So it's the same thing on the field. Yeah, you get to communities, and sometimes, Charlie, somebody will rise and tell you, say, you dey do nya. Charlie, you're not doing it. You're not doing it. Like, I'm not being shout. You know, that you haven't done anything. You know, and you have to take it in good faith. You have to take your time, listen, understand why the person feels that way, and try to, you know, appeal to the person to appreciate how difficult it is to do all the things he may be expecting you to do. And you know, highlight the things that you have been able to do despite the difficulties. You would need that patience. You know, like on radio, you get some of those text messages. You have not been reading my messages. I send them and you don't read them. And then what do you say? Well, today I got it and I was able to read it. Yeah, no, that's the thing. So sometimes you win some, you lose some.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. But aside the anecdote you gave, like being politics, you said is like being on the veranda of politics. But aside that, what else have you learned about politics that you didn't know, and also what attribute have you had to take on and focus a bit more on?
Well, I think that what attribute I've had to take on and focus on more is building relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say, even in the course of my primaries in 2015, I used to tell my friends that one of the things I'm very grateful for, even if I didn't win at the time, I used to have this conversation, was before the primaries. I said, even if I didn't win, one thing I'm grateful for taking this step is that it has reconnected me in ways that I never thought I had lost.
Okay.
You know, I had taken certain, you know, relationships for granted. You know, there are times that you get too familiar with people and you just assume that, you know, things are okay and all of that. I've learned that relationships matter, and keeping those relationships alive, you know, require some effort and different approaches.
Okay.
You know, sometimes it's not just the phone calls, it's not enough. You know, and it's not just the occasional meetings, running into each other. It's not enough. You know, in politics, you know, sometimes you need to actually spend the time, you know, being there for people when they need you to be there. You know, sometimes it's not about sending a momo. You know, it's about being there when they want you to be there. You know, so that's one thing that I'm focusing on and playing and working on to develop much further. Now, another thing that I really have been battling with and dealing with is it's the pettiness in our politics.
Pettiness?
Oh my goodness. I find it very, very difficult to deal with.
People can be petty.
People you don't expect to be petty can be so petty. It's unbelievable. I mean, the things big men fight over, or disagree over, or argue over, or refuse to talk to each other over, sometimes just throw me off my seat.
Argue, disagree,
to
talk to each other
over. I just sometimes think they are just so petty. Sana, but it's what it is.
Okay.
So that's one area that I still can't wrap my head around.
Okay.
But
you are learning a lot about.
Yeah. I can still understand it, and sometimes it makes you wonder if you can last in this or not.
So far, so good, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, alhamdulillah, we'll say alhamdulillah. It's been a good school for me. I mean, I think that the things I have learned in politics, no school could have taught me. It's been a good school of life.
Yeah, because one of your mentors and teachers in this arena, Alhaji Suhuyini.
Yeah.
When he was leaving Parliament, I would say, why would you leave, Alhaji? This is the time when, if we listen to you, we hear your experience a bit more. Nowadays, when you listen to Alhaji Suhuyini, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He speaks. And then
intelligent. He's law. In fact, the minority leader calls him the law.
Yeah,
because his
understanding of the law is so clear.
Yeah.
He simplifies. Then he told me, no, Sana, I'm done. I'm not going back to it. I was so surprised.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe over time you learn the lessons.
Yeah, and sometimes it just gets to that point. When I was here, I used to say it that one day monkey go market, go come back. So sometimes it just gets to that point where you just feel like, okay, you've had it all, and I think that is where Honorable Inusa got to.
Okay.
I remember the story that he tells about how somebody insulted the mother.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, he said it on a local radio station when he was asked about one of his painful moments, representing the constituency, and he said a small boy insulted the mother. It's not airworthy. The insult is not airworthy. I would have said it, but it's even more painful when it is said in Dagwani. In fact, the mother's private parts. That kind of insult. And he said every time he remembers that insult, he just gets upset, and he wonders why he will subject his mother, his poor mother. Why? I'm the one doing the politics. You have been insulting me. Why are you bringing my mother into it? He says. And so those are some of the low moments, that when they accumulate over time and you are not careful, you may just decide that enough is enough. And those were some of the things I am sure pushed him to get to that point to say, look, he calls it a thankless job, that he's had enough, and he's doing very well on his farms.
Very nice.
He's doing amazing
very
well.
nice.
I mean, he's one of the biggest rice producers in Ghana today.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. He's one of the biggest rice producers.
Oh, then Alhaji has not been fair to me. He has not been rice for me ever since.
I'm sorry, I exposed the truth.
Alhaji is watching. Then Alhaji is in trouble. But it's wonderful seeing you. But yesterday, I asked this question to I think 2 days ago. I think somebody you know very well.
Oh yeah. We're all here together.
Yes, ask him this question about how it feels like to be a member of parliament at this time. I know when you go home, you wake up to queues of people. In fact, even when you are in bed, you can even hear them. And sometimes you stay up very, very late. And when you have that, and then at this time, when people cannot even find money to buy basic food, I'm wondering how it feels like to be an MP. I'm wondering the kind of people walking into your homes and the kind of requests they are making to you, how that makes you feel like as a leader.
Sometimes it's humbling, and other times it's depressing. It's humbling because it reminds you of the privilege you have, that people will wake up and have problems and think that you are the solution.
Okay.
It's humbling in that sense,
Okay.
that people consider you a light in their darkness. Or in their dark moments, you are the light that they see. It's humbling in that sense. But it's depressing because you may not have the power or the capacity to meet their demands. Then it depresses you. You see genuine need, genuine, poverty, genuine pain. And you unfortunately just don't have the capacity to do anything about it. You get depressed. You get depressed about that. That's how for me it feels. When you come out or when you are inundated by demands from constituents, you're humbled. But in their dark moments, in their troubled moments, it is you they think of.
Help them.
It is you they think God can use to help them. It's humbling. It's a privilege. But then it's distressful. It's depressing when you don't have all the means to meet all their needs. But it's a choice we have made. And so I have this popular phrase in my constituency that I use that some of my executives like so much. I say, "Tinyande shanga kashanga nyandete." To it, we overcome some and some overcome us.
You overcome some
and some overcome us. Yeah, so do the troubles that come, we solve some, we're unable to solve some. We pray to God to empower us to do more.
Overcome some overcome you. Very interesting. But sometimes one of the things I appreciate about you is the kind of things you live on. I think one was shared recently. I think when we were in the studios of I was just looking for a picture for you to use for a flyer. I was going through things and I found a video of you having a conversation, I think the studios of Joy FM, personality profile.
Yeah.
Yes, you said something, it had escaped me, but I always find it. How do you come up with this kind of?
What did I say? I don't know what I have even said.
No, because you've said several things. Like, for example, even that thing you used to say hello anyway. I was always thinking, how did this thing just hit this man? And then he says
it's grace. Maybe it's grace. I don't know. Sometimes it's grace. It just comes to you. But I think also it's as a result of let me not be unfair to people who may be listening and want to. It's as a result of reading wide. Sometimes you even use words and phrases and you don't know where you learn them from. You don't remember where
it came from.
Yeah, when you picked it up. But I'm sure when you just read wide, it's like pouring water through a basket. Even though a lot of it will leak away, the basket still gets wet.
Yeah.
So just read wide. I mean, some will stay. That's how I see it.
Well, Honorable, thank you.
Thank you,
I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think when the station comes back, we should have you a bit more here.
Yes, definitely.
Much more
Definitely.
Much more constantly.
Definitely. My problem is with the weekends. I love to spend my weekends in my constituency, but the weekdays we can find a regular spot.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can understand that nowadays. But sometimes I wonder how you manage it, because even if you were driving a car nowadays, imagine how much fuel you're using.
It's not easy. We just thank God for grace. I mean, sometimes even the I can be very frank with you. The income in Parliament
is not commensurate with the expenditure.
No.
Not very close.
No. Not close. It's not even it's not close. So it's just sometimes the grace of God, like I say, people just pick you out, and every now and then they chip in with support here and there because they know you have that burden of meeting the needs of constituents, and that's how we get by. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we thank God for
this is wonderful to
such
see.
things.
It's wonderful to see.
So it's a pleasure.
And to
Thank
know
you
that,
so much for having me.
and to know that you are rising. Yeah. Nowadays, be careful what you say, because tomorrow if you become vice president or president,
You played
and
that.
I am here,
No.
you die.
No, I mean that's not. No. Let me just keep quiet.
So, Alhassan Suhuyini is a member of a family here. He's a member of parliament for Tamale North. It's very important that you acknowledge that. The Tamale North people are very, 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 what they call it, proud of their MP. In fact,
they are jealous.
Yes. So if you come and sit there, you don't acknowledge them, the thing they will do to you. So it's important that I acknowledge that. And it's, my brother, it's always a pleasure.
Right.
Always a pleasure. Well, we have
Keep it up, Sen. I mean, the sky is the limit. In fact, it's the beginning. Keep it up.
Thank
you
you.
have stayed very, very focused over the years. Please don't get distracted.
Okay. I hear you.
I wish
hear
you all
so.
the best.
Yeah.